Avaya has changed my life.
Avaya has made me the woman I am today.
Avaya is my home.
Avaya is personal freedom.
Avaya is the reason my life continuously improves.
Let everyone in your life know about Avaya.
Everyone needs to know about this amazing company.
Thank you, Avaya, for appearing in my inbox.
What Ike Allen and Andy Anderson have created at Avaya is what the world needs.
Hello everyone, my name is Ashley Paget. Welcome to Avaya's Overcoming Depression and Loneliness curriculum. Thank you so much for joining us. Our fellow teacher Sharon Martin is here with us today to talk about holiday help for managing feelings, setting boundaries, and staying connected. Sharon is a licensed psychotherapist, mental health writer, and media contributor on emotional health and relationships. Her psychotherapy practice specializes in helping individuals struggling with perfectionism, codependency, and people-pleasing. Her own struggle to feel good enough inspired her passion for helping others learn to accept and love themselves. Sharon writes the popular blog Happily Imperfect for Psych Central and is the author of the CBT Workbook for Perfectionism. Thanks for being here, Sharon.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks so much, Ashley.
I know that you have been with us before, so we're happy to see you again. So
Yes.
Let's dive right into it. Why are the holidays difficult for so many people?
Well, I think there's so many different reasons. I'll try to hit on a few, and you're welcome to chime in with some as well. I think part of it is the stress. It feels like there's always so much to do, and we want it to be just right. Whether it's the pressure to buy the right gift or bake the right thing, and I think so many expectations. Some from other people. About what we should do, where we should go, how we should spend our money, and how we should spend the holidays. But of course, some of it is internal as well. Like we put a lot of this pressure on ourselves. It's not just, the media and the family, right? Putting the pressure on. I think, we have sort of bought into it over the years. And, we also feel like we want to get it right. And I think it's tough to, try to fit so much into, a reasonably short amount of time. I know in some ways it's like the holidays have kind of stretched bigger, but I think we've only just added more, like more things that we should do, even though maybe the time that we're kind of putting up the decorations and so forth is getting longer. But I think maybe the other part that's stressful is that we get off of our routines, which is fun, right? I mean, like if you're on vacation or just have some time off, right? It's good, but I think it's also, sort of that stress of not having the things that kind of anchor us in our, daily activities, sort of the healthy habits that, keep us going, right? So, over the holidays, it's so easy to not eat so healthfully or not exercise, stay up late, have a little too much to drink, right? Again, like fun in the moment, but often we don't feel so great if we do that for, more than a day or two, right? So that kind of adds some more to it, I think, as well. And then I guess maybe the only other thing I'll add, although like I said, there's probably more, is that, unfortunately for a lot of people, the holidays have not always been enjoyable, right? So it's, there's sort of bad associations. There's, memories of disappointments and conflicts and the reminder that maybe you don't get along so well with your family or that a loved one has passed away. And so it's hard when the holidays are, supposed to be happy, but you're just really not feeling that happy. So that's, that's tough any time of year, but I think the holidays just add that extra, layer of, like I said, sort of that pressure, that expectation that you're supposed to be happy at the holidays.
Yes.
So I think a lot of people are kind of just trying to fake it, let me just kind of get through it, rather than actually, enjoying it.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And it's such a complex thing, that there are so many, you have layered on, your expectations for this year, you have maybe what happened last year, and then, you know, this whole network of things that are going on with other people. And I'm sure, I mean, I know I've experienced how contagious, you know, that can be, emotions both good and bad. And
Yeah.
yeah, and even positive stressor is still a stressor.
Yes, yes, absolutely. You know, things like, you know, holiday parties, or, you know, the shopping, or, you know, things like that. You're right. I mean, it's more to do, travel, you know, and I think, you know, this year in particular, everything feels a little bit more complex. Um, you know, I think, you know, since it's new for all of us, holidays with a, you know, pandemic, who knows really what to expect, other than it's not going to be exactly the same. I suspect, you know, some things could be a little bit easier actually, and some things are definitely going to be harder, that we can't do all of the things that we want to do. You know, and I think people are in general more isolated, more anxious, more depressed, just with, you know, all of the extra, changes and, disappointments and things that aren't going the way we expected them to be going.
Absolutely. And I mean, in that regard, it seems inevitable that we'll experience some difficult emotions during these holidays. What are some ways we can cope with this?
Mm. Yeah, I'll give you a few pointers. I think, you know, everybody's a little bit different, but one thing I think is sort of good across the board as we're talking about just sort of the busyness and the extra stuff that we're layering onto our schedules is making sure that we actually make some time to try to understand and deal with what we're feeling. Because I think especially when we're overstressed and overbusy, there's a tendency to just kind of push the feelings aside, especially the difficult ones,
Yeah.
right? The unpleasant ones, um, you know, and sort of not want to deal with it. And sometimes actually, you know, we can sort of unconsciously be sort of keeping ourselves busy as a distraction, right? It's the I don't want to have to deal with those feelings, so let me stay so busy that I don't actually think about them. You know, or again, we can get into sort of some other, unhealthy, you know, coping skills of, you know, eating too much and drinking too much and that kind of stuff as avoidance, as well. So anyway, so first thing is I would say sort of try to slow down, try to check in with yourself, and just be open to trying to, you know, kind of listen to what your body and your mind is telling you about how you're feeling. And then once we do that, we can actually then I think find some ways, of coping that actually work, right? If you know, so if you notice that, oh, I'm sad or I'm angry about something, you know, then I can think about, okay, well, what can I do, to kind of process some of that? You know, is that, should I, you know, call a friend or write in a journal, or, you know, talk to my therapist, or do I need a physical outlet? You know, would it be really good to, you know, do something really active, you know, go for a, you know, a good run and kind of sweat some of it out, and, you know, that kind of release, you know, or, you know, maybe it's meditation. I think, you know, I think different people, you know, certainly use different strategies. Maybe the other thing I would say across the board, is just like anytime that you're feeling like you're under more stress or you're having more difficult emotions, like what you want to do is just kind of increase the self-care. Right. And that's, I mean, it's similar to what I've been talking about, but even if you think about the basics of your physical, taking care of your physical body is, you know, you want to make sure that you're getting enough sleep, and you're, eating reasonably well. Like we don't need to be perfect about things, but there definitely is that mind body connection, I think. So if you're having some difficult feelings, you want to make sure that you're taking care of your body as well, not just sort of the emotional pieces of it.
Absolutely. And that, especially when you're going through difficult emotions, it can, like, I know in my experience, if I'm going through a really tough time, sometimes the last thing on my mind is what's going on with all this.
Yeah.
You know, I myself, I tend to get stuck in my head, you know, and a good thing I have a partner that he'll be like, okay, honey, here's some carrots. You or something, or like a good and healthy snack. He's very conscientious about that. So
Yes. Yeah,
it's
sometimes it's just really simple, basic things like that, that can make the difference, or just something that's sort of nurturing. I like to try to think like what's sort of healthy but still nurturing, that sort of feels like it's comfort, whether that's, a nice cup of, decaf tea or the hot soak in the tub. Because I think the other thing that happens is that all those emotions can really be exhausting, like I think in an emotional sense and in a physical
yes,
sense as well. Like you can just feel drained sort of from the coping, the dealing with, the constant, figuring out, what to do. Which again, so there's that physical element of like you really need to take care of yourself, your that physical self, in addition to the emotional self.
absolutely. And so, okay, so we've established a lot of people, probably almost all of us, if not all of us, struggle with loneliness during the holidays, struggle with these difficult emotions. And as you mentioned before, with the pandemic and with us being more isolated for our own physical safety and for the safety of people that we care about, what are your suggestions for people on staying connected, even if they have to stay physically apart?
Mm, yeah, yeah, that's a great question, because I think we've got sort of two overlapping ideas, which is the idea of being lonely and the idea of being alone, which, like I said, I mean, they overlap, but they're not necessarily the same thing. I think we've all had the experience of actually being with people, but feeling alone, right? Being
Yes.
um, feeling lonely, feeling disconnected in that sense. And then there's the literal, I'm alone at my house and I'm spending the holidays by myself because I can't, travel to see my family, or I'm, um, you know, not getting along with them, or whatever the reason might be, right? But actually, I think sort of trying to understand the root of it, like what is it about, and what kind of connection and with who would you like to have that connection, can kind of put you down the path, of figuring out where to go with that. Um, I don't know if you wanted to add anything there. Um,
Something that honestly has helped me a bit, is because the pandemic, of course, we went through all of those emotions, that uncertainty and everything. And something that I found is that it gave me, once I settled down, a lot of clarity on who was really important to me and who I wanted to have in my life.
mhm.
And that was, that gave me my direction of, okay, these are the people that I need to be texting, I need to be talking to, I need to be making Zoom calls with and checking up on and everything. So that was something that I thought was very strange but very helpful that came out of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is. Because again, I think it sort of speaks to that notion of you can you can be around people, or you can even be in contact, right? You can be texting people or emailing them, but still not feel like it's this sort of meaningful depth, of the connection that perhaps you're looking for. And we don't need to have, the in-depth connection with every single person, but we need a few people,
Yeah.
that's just a human across the board. We all have that need to feel connected, to feel accepted, um, to feel important to some people, right? So if you don't have that, I think it's painful no matter what time of the year it is. But
Yeah.
again, I think the holidays really kind of highlight, it, and you feel, I think, more separate and more different. And I think, this can kind of lead us almost into this place of, self blame and shame, with the sort of the notion that maybe there's something wrong with me, right? If I'm all alone, maybe it's me, right? And I think the problem with this is that then that sort of sets us up to continue to be separate, to
Yes.
continue to be isolated and lonely, right? Because what we really want to do, if we really want to have connection with other people, is we really need to, I think, set an intention, maybe even set a very specific goal around what we're going to do to try to connect with people. And again, like for some people, this comes more naturally, and for other people, it's harder. And that's just some of our nature, right? Different personalities, different traits that we might have. And it's not, one's not better than the other. It's just a difference. But I think if you recognize that, if you're more of an introverted person, or you have some social anxiety, or something that sort of is a barrier, that you're going to have to work a bit harder. But that doesn't mean you can't do it. I think it just means, like I said, okay, let me figure out what is it that I'm going to do. And sometimes it's really just starting with some very simple things, to try to be more open to connection. And I think kind of looking for it everywhere. Whether it's just trying to make eye contact or smile a little bit more, kind of thinking about the body language that, you're using, that can kind of let people know, hey, I'm interested in talking, right? Versus the I'm staring at the floor, or I'm staring at my phone, is what most of us are doing. And again, like, we all get it, because when we feel sort of awkward, or anxious, that's what we do now, is we just find something, like our phone, to distract ourselves, so that, again, here we go, sort of, we don't have to feel the uncomfortable feeling. Right, exactly. But then what we're doing is we're sending the message to other people, that, hey, I really don't want to have a conversation, so it's unlikely that somebody's going to come and start a conversation with you. And again, like, you may walk down your street or go to the grocery store and kind of do all of these things that I'm talking about to be open for connection, and none might come. But I think, the more you practice it, the more you do it. And then even if you sort of take the next steps and really think about, okay, maybe I could start a conversation, with that neighbor that I, pass every day, but don't really know, or, maybe I'd like to get involved in, a religious community or a volunteer group, or, let me kind of think about where I might find some of those connections. Or sometimes there's, connections that I think that have just sort of been lost along the way, that sometimes are worth trying to revive. Sometimes they're not. I'm not going to say they're all worth saving, but, I mean, certainly there are some people that we've just sort of fallen out of touch with.
Right.
Or the other thing is, sometimes there's people that are really, they're kind of acquaintances, maybe somebody you work with or something like that. But you can think about, could I turn that into a friendship? Like, is there a way for us to kind of build on what's already there? So sometimes it's not sort of starting from scratch completely. And then again, I mean, I think even just, if there's family members that you want to connect with, it's really, some of it's making it a priority. And I think really saying to them, this matters to me, it's important, I'd really like to, schedule a time to talk with you, or have that Zoom call, or, something like that, rather than just kind of letting it pass by. We're thinking maybe it's their turn to initiate. It's easy to make excuses, for things as well. And so, I don't want to minimize that it is definitely very painful, but I think we also have to take ownership of it, in terms of it being like a problem that you can do things to make it better. Maybe you can't, sort of solve it completely, or, between, now and the holidays, maybe it's like, okay, well, that's not a lot of time for me to, make some new friends to spend Christmas with. But I think there are definitely some steps that you can take that will help you feel, less alone, less isolated, more connected to some people. And it's sort of, a step in the right direction, at least.
Oh yeah. And I really feel like just having a start can help so many people, having that hope that, okay, I'm starting to talk to this person, or hey, the mailman that comes and they bring my packages, I'm saying hi to them every day, or something, just something that gets that spark going.
Mm-hmm. And obviously we need human to human connection. But I think maybe it's worth mentioning too that animals can be a great, source of companionship and connection, right? I mean, again, it's not going to replace, that you need human friends too, but that's something worth thinking about too, is spend time with pets, with animals. obviously sometimes that's easier.
Yeah, and they're still giving you emotional feedback.
They do, and they definitely provide comfort. It's a certain type of companionship. Obviously, they're not going to have a conversation with you about that movie you just watched, but it is a living, breathing, being to go for your walk with, which I think can feel less alone than doing it by yourself. And the other thing maybe that I'll throw out there, Ashley, just with regards to feeling, connected and isolated. Again, I think it's like really natural for us now to turn to social media as a way to try to connect with people. And obviously that can be a wonderful thing, right? It really is an easy way to stay connected. But I think we also know that it often, it kind of backfires.
Yeah.
Sometimes, right, we get off the social media feeling worse than when we got on there. We feel more alone, more disconnected. We kind of get into that compare and despair. We see what everybody else is doing, and it just makes us feel worse. So I think, again, just sort of pay attention to that, for yourself. If that is the experience you're having, first of all, no, it's really very common. And so, all that tells you is, okay, like I should probably spend less time on social media and more time trying to connect in other ways, because if that isn't a good way for you to connect, it's obviously not helpful to do something that is making you feel worse.
Right, absolutely. And so, okay, so talking about hopefully not rare, but the perhaps rare occasion that people will be able to get with their family and be there physically. What about those people that are able to do so and they still feel lonely and disconnected? Do you have suggestions for those people?
Yeah, well, and I think some of it is the same, but I will add here that I think we need to, first of all, just sort of accept the fact that just because we're related to people by blood, marriage, whatever, adoption, right? Just because somebody is your family does not mean that you are going to get along with them, you are going to feel connected and close to them, or that you should. I think this is one of those expectations that really does us in, right? We think that this is the most important relationship, that I must get along with my parents or my siblings, and I need to be close to them. Again, it often sort of comes to this place of like, well, what's wrong with me? Why can't I, have that kind of close relationship that other people seem to have with their family? It is not necessarily because you're doing something wrong. Some families, quite honestly, function better than others. And what I have experienced after many years of being a therapist is, honestly, sometimes the people who actually feel disconnected from a dysfunctional family are sometimes the healthiest members of that family.
Wow.
Uh-huh. Right. And it is because you see the dysfunction and you don't want to be a part of it and you don't want to be abused and you're not going to put up with it anymore, that you are on the outside.
And
Because
that's
if you're willing to just sort of go along with all the problems and the chaos and all the bad stuff, then you'll fit right in. Right. So don't assume that it's a bad thing that you're not feeling connected and fitting in there. Right. Again, like if your family functions well and you feel connected, like great, it's nice, it's easy. It's harder for people who have to say, I'm not going to get the kind of connection that I need from my family, so I need to find it elsewhere. Right? You can certainly do that. We all know the old, Friendsgiving episode, of
yes,
Friends, right? We can have meaningful holidays with people we're not related to, right?
yes,
It's a little bit more work, right, to kind of get that group and, have it happen.
corral
Um,
everyone.
yeah, right. Because it's maybe not the norm, right? If, most people are going to grandma's house or, something like that. but again, I think especially with the way the world is these days, not just because people don't get along with their families necessarily, but people have moved away quite often, and
Yes.
it's harder to get together. I think in generations past, it was people stayed in close proximity and or
Yes.
lived together, right? And
Yes.
for people now, they often have sort of created, new friend groups that they want. It makes sense to spend holidays with, or at least some of them. Mm-hmm.
Yes, absolutely. And this is something that we see in or that has been studied anthropologically too.
Mm,
It's exactly what you were saying, in generations past and in times past, really when we didn't relocate as much and when our survival really keyed into or relied upon that family connection and that community, it was a lot easier to stay in those close knit things, even if they were not perhaps the most healthy situations,
yeah,
because to be excluded from it meant you didn't survive.
right,
But
right.
now with the way that at least the US and certain other countries are, it's with the amount of mobility that we have and with the ease of connection through the internet,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
fictive kinship has really taken more of a role in people's social life.
Yeah, right. It's more possible than ever, right, for us to stay connected, and that's always sort of the irony of it, right? Is then people seem to feel more and more disconnected, right? Even though we have all of the technology to make it possible. But again, I think sometimes it's that we're looking for connection from the wrong people, essentially,
Yeah.
right? I mean, people that have shown us time and again that they're really not interested, or capable of having the kind of relationship that we want to have with them. Um, and I think, maybe this is sort of my, recurring theme here as I keep talking to you, is that, um, instead of taking this on as this idea of like there's something wrong with me, that my family isn't connected to me or I'm not connected to them, or whatever, whichever way you want to look at it, right? Is seeing this as like you have other choices. You are not locked into this one family group or this one community. We have access to a lot of people potentially,
Yes.
right? And I really do think that everybody fits in somewhere.
Oh yes.
And it's just like I said, it's sometimes it's harder to find that place, because it's a little bit more obscure or it's not available in your neighborhood. But if you keep looking, I do think it's there. And sometimes maybe the hardest part is sort of the not giving up. Um,
Yes.
yeah.
Absolutely. It's so important to realize that your tribe does exist. It might take you a little bit to find them, but your people do exist, and the ones that are meant for you will welcome you.
Yeah, yeah, and I think part of that is, maybe even before we can do that, there's sort of this sort of piece of understanding who we are,
Yeah. Oh,
right,
yes.
and right, and sort of the self acceptance, right, so that you can be true to yourself. Because I think a lot of times, if we've spent many years sort of trying to fit ourselves into, the wrong place, we can easily lose track of really what is it that matters to me, or what is it that I like to do, or um, sort of that sense of self gets lost a bit, right? And I think, right, here's the other piece about like real connection has to be built on authentic, being authentic as two people here, right? I mean, it, because this is this part of why we can feel lonely when we're around people, is that if we're not being really true to who we are, right, we're not speaking about what really matters to us, or we're not saying things that we disagree with, right? There's sort of this element of, people pleasing, or just kind of going along here, either, right, because we don't want to upset people and we want to fit in, or because we're just really not sure what we think and feel and believe. But in order to have that depth of connection, we absolutely have to feel like, both safe enough to be vulnerable, and right, that I can really be myself around you. Because if I'm not my true self around you, right, then the connection doesn't really have that depth. It doesn't really have a lot of meaning to it. It sort of ends up feeling like, well, you like the sort of the version of me that I'm portraying to you, but if that's not my real self, that doesn't give me a sense of acceptance and belonging that I'm looking for, right?
Right.
Yeah.
It's you accept something that's me adjacent.
Mm-hmm.
but
Mm-hmm.
but that barrier is still there, whether it's from
Yeah.
fear of not being accepted for who
Mm-hmm.
you truly are, or fear of retaliation, or something of that nature.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, certainly, it's a different situation if we're talking about being with somebody who has actually shown you that it's not safe to be yourself,
Yeah.
right? In which case, then absolutely. But again, that in that situation, we also need to stop trying to have, a real connection with somebody who isn't going to accept us, right? Um, because they've shown us that it's not possible for us to be, that honest, sort of vulnerable self with them, because it's not safe for us to continue to be ourselves around people who are going to be cruel or rejecting, or, somehow, you know, cutting us down and abusive in any way, right? We
Right.
need to absolutely protect ourselves above all else.
Absolutely. And I hate to say it, but we are running low on time. So I want to remind everyone that there are two buttons below this video. When you click on them, they will lead you to a free gift and a special offer that Sharon has for you. Can you tell everyone what those are, please?
Of course. Yes. Thanks for reminding me. I'm going to forget myself.
It's
So
all
the,
right.
the
This is a great
freebie, the freebie is a free guide to coping with loneliness and stress during the holidays. So it's got some information and some tips in there, a good little guide. And then there is a special offer for a handling the holidays toolkit, which has a lot of good stuff in it. It talks a lot about dealing with difficult family members and setting boundaries, and some other self-care and uh, meditations and things like that to kind of help you cope and get through the holidays. So I hope people will take advantage of both of those.
That's fantastic. I really hope they do. And these tools are something that can really help you get yourself in shape and ready to interact, in what ways you find yourself being able to. We find ourselves being able to this coming holiday season.
Yeah, yeah, it's like emotional boot camp. We gotta we
Yeah.
gotta get ourselves in emotional shape
Yes.
for it. Sometimes it feels that way, right? When you kind of know you're headed into, this difficult period of time. But I don't. I hope people won't, you know, just dread the holidays as well, right? I mean, I think that's part of like getting some coping skills, getting some support, is feeling like, okay, I can handle this, rather than it's like, just like do me in again.
Yeah. And I think also it's important to share that it is a journey, you know. It may not be something that happens immediately, but doing the work is important, and trusting that you're doing the work, will get you results.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you so much for saying that, because I really believe that too. It's really the baby steps, that's how we get there. It's not, there's no quick, fast, easy way to the, finish line. Not that there really is one in life anyway, but, we're always, I think if you can feel like you're continuing to learn and grow little by little, you're making progress. Sometimes you don't see it, but often it's happening, sort of below the surface.
Oh yeah. Oh
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. It's like sometimes just taking yourself and thinking, okay, how did I feel a year ago at this
Hmm.
time, or how did I feel about these certain things at this time that I've been working on? Where was I then, and where am I now? Just
Yeah.
myself that.
Yeah, and sometimes like a variation of that question can be a good one too to ask yourself. I think maybe going into the holidays is, how do I want this holiday to be different than the last one, right? What am I going to do to make it different?
There you go.
Yeah, and maybe I'll just leave you with one last thing here because I know you said we were out of time. I'll just keep talking to you if you let me. But I think along those same lines, if we try to think of maybe, like, it doesn't have to be like this all or nothing, like the holidays are really awful or they're really wonderful, right? But just trying to think about maybe, is there one thing that you could enjoy during the holidays? That doesn't mean you're going to enjoy everything and everything's going to be perfect. But if you could sort of mindfully just try to really enjoy and appreciate one aspect of it, it could just be something, really simple. Like baking, a particular thing that you really enjoy, or spending time with one particular person, right? There might be a bunch of other really difficult, stressful things still. But maybe you can do one piece in a way that feels meaningful and enjoyable to you. And that can be just one place to start with it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And just branch out from there.
Yes, keep growing.
Yes. Oh, well, thank you so much for being with us tonight, Sharon. We love you here at Avaya, obviously.
Likewise, it's always a pleasure. These are always such wonderful events, and it's nice to be able to share some information that I hope is helpful with people.
Oh, I really believe so. I think we have some good stuff here.
Okay, well, thank you so much.
Thank you. And thank you so much for joining us today. We'll see you next class.
Avaya has changed my life.
Avaya has made me the woman I am today.
Avaya is my home.
Avaya is personal freedom.
Avaya is the reason my life continuously improves.
Let everyone in your life know about Avaya.
Everyone needs to know about this amazing company.
Thank you, Avaya, for appearing in my inbox.
What Ike Allen and Andy Anderson have created at Avaya is what the world needs.